Cool. Thanks very much for that. I can't talk about anything that did happen in Las Vegas, but I can talk about certification of renewable gas. We got some slides. Oh, there we go. So I'll start my presentation by answering the question from the last one. So the last comment that Ben made was bang on point, is that you don't need co-location as long as it's connected to the transmission network. Then any energy user can buy that renewable gas. And then the question becomes, well, how do you know who owns those renewable attributes, and can they trace it back to the source, and can we make sure that they're not being sold twice and it's all balancing? And so that's where Brave Trace comes in. So we've been doing that same thing in the electricity industry for 6 years now, and we've been working with Elspeth and her team, and we'll be doing the same for gas when that starts shortly. So you may know some of our companies. So we used to be Certified Energy. We had a rebrand earlier in the year. One of the reasons is now that the electricity business is up and running and stable, we're looking to branch out. So renewable gas is the first branch out. We're also looking at projects and things as diverse as sustainable aviation fuel, renewable freight, any sort of system where there's some renewable production being mixed in with non-renewable production. Tracing who owns those renewable attributes becomes really important. So Tim Middlehurst was the founder, original CEO. He now runs our Brave Trace Ventures arm, so he's looking at all those new products. He's worked with Elspeth and her team closely to get us where we are. And then there's myself, so I've come from an electricity background, wholesale markets. And then we have Delphine David, who's formerly from Toitu, so she's a bit of a certification expert, and she'll go and talk to customers, so some of you may have seen some of those faces before. So we're here to accelerate the transition for renewable energy. And that's the purpose, and that's what we're trying to do, and that's what our product does. So I might just skip through some of these because I want to answer some of what Ben will say, because I have some thoughts on that. So a little bit who we are, 6-year-old New Zealand-based company, and that's all we do. We're 100% focused on certification of renewable attributes through systems, and that's so electricity 2018. We're doing the biomethane. We've got October up there, see how we go, and we've got some other projects that we're looking at, and we're looking to expand more on that as well. So basically how the system works is, in our system, you have a registrant who's a generator or producer that produces renewable electricity, renewable gas, whatever it is, and we issue certificates to them. And on our registry, those certificates are then transferred ownership to the energy user who buys it at the end, and they're redeemed against their consumption. And so we check that the consumption matches. Just want to be really clear, we don't sell renewable certificates. We're like the third-party auditor that comes in and checks that what is being claimed by the producers and the energy users is right and correct and accurate, and is all tracked and certified accordingly. We also do a statement of position at the end of the year, just to look at the usage of that customer to see how much renewable electricity, gas, whatever it is, they've bought, and if it's been matched. So in terms of decarbonisation, this is one of the tools in the toolkit. So the first 3 boxes there are things that businesses can and should do to reduce their emissions, reduce their energy usage, which is a direct cost saving, particularly in the current market, whether you can do straight reduction, energy efficiency, fuel switching. But whatever you do on those 3 aspects, most businesses are going to use some electricity and or some gas. And so the certification, whatever that last little bit is, buying renewable electricity, renewable gas. And we also have carbon offsetting, which we've put in a little box out to the side. So as international standards on this stuff have evolved, and they're currently being updated, the support for renewable electricity certificates gets stronger. The evidence that it's making a difference and it's helping renewable assets get built gets stronger. There was a study that published last week out of the States where it's making a big difference. And the carbon offsetting is kind of, some company says, well, there's a rainforest in Brazil and we're going to get some carbon from that or something. And the support for that is decreasing over time. So that's nothing to do with what we do, and nothing to do with what we would recommend businesses do to address these issues. So the certificates are digital, sit in our registry, and it's 1 megawatt hour of energy, which is part of the international standard. Shows all these attributes. So obviously people are mainly interested in the renewable attribute, but things such as the energy type, so whether it's biomethane, hydrogen, etc., whether you want to buy solar, wind, whatever it is, the location is actually important. So if you have a business that's based in the South Island, you could be assured that you're buying Tekapō power generation and supporting South Island assets, if that's important to your business. We also show by production month, so all the information's there so everyone can know exactly what they're buying and who they're buying it from. So on the electricity side, so Last year we had 320 energy users on our system, and we certified 1.8 million certificates. So I just want to link to what Ben was talking about. So last year there was 320 New Zealand companies that are spending more money than they have to and paying a premium to buy renewable electricity. Just doing some quick numbers now, those companies are paying tens of millions of dollars extra over and above what their base energy costs would be to support that. That's flown to renewable generators. When you add in some PPAs and some things we know that exist that aren't part of our system, there's between $100 and $200 million, maybe more, currently per year flowing from energy users to renewable generators in the New Zealand electricity system. So I would say there's massive appetite from energy users for renewable gas. I was sharing with John Kidd during the break a conversation I had with one of our customers who owns a factory who's using energy certificates, reduce their scope 2 emissions, and they have gas, and they told us they would pay double what they're paying the wholesale gas price, which was about $15, a little bit more. Right, and so to find those customers, what we've learned, there's a few things you need to look at. We look at, on the electricity side, but it'll be the same in gas, NZX listed companies, particularly multinational companies, because they make ESG commitments. They sign up to Science Based Targets Initiative, RE100, these sort of things. Percentage of energy cost to OPEX is really important. So on electricity, we don't have anything with TY, New Zealand Steel, forestry mills, those sort of things. We have 12 banks, because electricity cost for bank is 0.000 something 1% of their OPEX, and adding a little bit on the top of that is really palatable and easy for them to do. So it's about finding the right type of business with the right profile, but certainly we have 350 businesses out there paying extra to do this, and some of those are gas users are telling us they would love it. So if you've got a facility, we'd love to hook you up with some energy users that we have that would love to buy. So 1.8 million. So as of today, we've gone from 320 to 350 this year already, and we're at about 2.3 million certificates a year. So that's from this roughly 32 million renewable certificates per year generated. And our growth rate of 40-50% is maintained at the moment, albeit off a small base, but it's about to become a really significant thing in the New Zealand market. And in terms of the costs, some rough costs, $250 a megawatt hour for electricity, including lines, distribution, everything. If you can get, that's probably a really good deal. But the cost of the certificates is 3 to 12 over the top, and then our fees are relatively small on the top of that. So that little bit extra, summing that for all our customers, is in the tens of millions of dollars, and like I said, between 1 and 200 million if you added in some of the big PPAs and stuff that aren't certified through us. One of the important issues is revenue use, right? So when customer buys a certificate and pays a premium, what's being done with that money? If all you do is produce renewable electricity or gas, it's relatively easy to demonstrate what it's being used for. If you don't, we're working with the big gentailers on impact quantification or ring fencing schemes, where we ring fence that money that's coming in for certificates and make sure that it goes to funding more renewable development. Meridian have a decarbonisation fund, so customers and community can apply to get funding to do decarbonisation projects and accelerate the transition. So this is a really important development for the market to give those energy users. They're happy to pay the money, they just want to know what's being done with it. That's basically how it works. So 321, old presentation, it's about 350 now. There's some of the types of customers that we have. Again, they're kind of fairly big, well-known brands. We've had one New Zealand actually sign up this week, or sign up a little while ago, but gave us permission to use their logo this week, so we'll be having one New Zealand on there. Along with some of those, I didn't even know there was 12 banks in New Zealand. Apparently there's 26, so we've got 14 target customers that we're after. And these are all globally recognised. So there's international standards. Most developed countries have some sort of system like this of renewable certification for various attributes, and our product's been designed to be compliant with all of these, and we can help any customers understand who have signed up to meet some of these standards or agreements or targets, exactly what they're doing. As I said, these are continually updated, and every update, the support for REX gets stronger and stronger. So in terms of gas, so basically how it works is you have the natural gas production facility, and it will go into the gas distribution network along with the non-renewable gas, and you've got the energy user at the other end, who gas consumers who don't have to be co-located, and then there's a certification off to the side where we're matching the production by month, the usage by month, tracking and making sure that all that balances, and giving their energy user assurance that they are buying the right quantities from the facility, and everything kind of matches up. So the benefits, so if you're a gas user, It's a bit of an error, sorry, on that slide. So it's actually Scope 2 emissions reduction. So your Scope 1, if your electricity generator, the coal you burn is Scope 1, energy used, electricity you buy is Scope 2. And so under the carbon accounting rules, you can legitimately use renewable energy certificates to reduce your Scope 2 emissions. If you sign up to science-based targets, you're saying, I want to reduce my Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 30 or 40%, whatever it is, by 2030. So this is one way that you can do that, meet your ESG goals, and make some of those claims. So it's actually interesting, the MasterChef example that we saw before, there's a bit of a Greenpeace backlash from that around exactly what they were claiming. And so part of what we do is advise customers on what legitimate claims are that they can make and what claims that they can't make. And our view is to be very careful in this space because it's a credibility-based business, and we don't want customers or ourselves or producers accidentally stating the wrong thing or claiming something. And of course, the main, if you're a producer, is extra revenue from that. And electricity market, there's lots of production. Our struggle is to find enough users, and that's growing all the time. But on the gas side, there's one production facility starting soon, and we see a lot of users looking for it. So we think the premium and the price for gas certificates is going to be much higher. And the challenge for us is going to be the production facilities and how we find those and get those online. Two of the projects we're working on, so I won't talk too long about this because Elzbieta is talking shortly, and I think most people are aware of this facility that we have there. So we've been, Tim Middlehurst particularly has been working with Elzbieta and her team around that. We're also doing a bit of work with the hitting a team with Matt Carnican and his team around green hydrogen is another opportunity for us. And as I said to you, we're also looking at all of these options. So really our product works for something if you're looking to reduce Scope 2 emissions. So if you're doing a project like Genesis is replacing coal with biomass, that would reduce their Scope 1 emissions. They don't need certification for that because that's not being injected into a transmission grid and shared by everyone. That's an on-site what they're doing. LPG, I'm not sure, would have to talk Crooksy if there was LPG as to whether that would, because it's not really going into a shared transmission network. If it was in separate tanks or containers, it might not need certification. And so Channel Infrastructure, we're working with them. They've got some tankability to have sustainable aviation fuel. And again, there are some businesses who have a lot of Scope 2 or Scope 3 emissions from their air travel and flights. And we see quite a big demand for people to be able to buy, flights powered by sustainable aviation fuel. The last comment I'll make before we open up for questions, one of the most common questions I get is role of government. I'm not sure if Paul Stocks is still here. I tried to call him, but I think he's gone already. So this is a voluntary product. So the messages we've heard from government is they want market-based solutions, and it's up to industry to solve this. And our role as business is we're connecting those energy users who are prepared to pay a premium with the renewable developments that need a premium to get their project off the ground. So we don't need government to support or help that. The most useful thing government could do is they have a carbon neutral government program around how they can reduce their emissions, and they don't currently allow the use of certification. So you go back to that diagram with the 4 boxes, and that was a Labour thing. Labour wanted to focus on reductions and efficiencies and stuff. But actually government is a user of electricity and is a user of gas, and if they were prepared to sign up to underwrite some of those projects, then they would probably get a cost saving for the taxpayer and a bit of funding for industry to do some things. So we're certainly working with them. That's where we'd like to see them go. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Shaun. Your presentation must have been extremely thorough because there's no questions come through the slide. But I will just ask anyone in the room, does anyone have a question for Shaun? There's a question now, apparently. Let's have a look, eh? So certification for gas makes sense, but thoughts on added costs that certification adds to electricity? Electricity generation is renewable anyway. In fact, customers pay for added costs.
Yeah. So what we're seeing in electricity is if your business signs up to RE100 or some of those international standards, they want you to certify a new renewable generation, which is less than 15 years old. And so currently certificates of new generation, the New Zealand wind farms repowering, what Lodestone are doing, they're probably going for close to double what their old certificates are. The point of their old certificates is that, so that 15-year time frame, if you look at the costs of keeping our existing generation running, I conservatively estimate it's about 5 billion over that 15-year period. And so if customers want to pay a bit extra and channel it towards supporting existing generation, particularly where it is, maybe it's in the co-location for their business and they want to support their local community, those sort of things, that's allowed on the system. But certainly if people want to support new generation, you can see exactly who you're buying from, right? So if you want to build a new solar farm and you want to do the PPA and buy certificates from that, that's absolutely fine. New Zealand's a bit unique because not a lot of countries have existing generation that's 80 to 85% of the current portfolio. One of the projects we're working on is when you repower a wind farm or put new panels on a solar farm, that then becomes new from that point forward. And we think there should be something similar for hydro, because at some point you're replacing the turbines and there's all new gear going in. At some point that becomes new as well, and that's because there's not, the countries that are doing this international standards aren't hydro dominant countries with great assets like ours. So we're going to take a bit of international lead on trying to develop some guidance around hydros that matches what we see around wind and solar.
Cool. Thank you very much, Shaun. Okay.
Go.
Oh, Ben, do you on the mic, mate?
Thank you. Sure, just my role, I've got a dual role here and being the sustainability lead for marine energy.
Yes.
I'd actually like to acknowledge the team for the effort that you've done on this. But the shock that I've got is because we're offering the carbon system into the agricultural consumer market as well, how much the farming community has taken up our product. And I mean, it's probably unknown to a lot of people how conscious farmers are with their energy consumption towards things. What would your reflection be to the market appetite for, your certified products?
So what I would say, and thank you for that, we've worked closely with Meridian over a long time, and that carbon fund that we help administer, I think that's doing really good things. What we've seen most of our growth in the last few years has been from customers 1,000 megawatt hours and under in electricity. So that's 1 gigawatt hour and under. So these are not big businesses, these are not massive businesses. We're increasingly seeing smaller energy users. And some of those are actually quite big companies, like some quite big retailers that have shops. So we're increasingly seeing it's not just the large end of town. There's a lot of smaller businesses across the country, farmers, those sort of things, who are happy to support the program like this. And the costs are pretty reasonable. I actually worked out, so no one does this on a retail, just being slide on the retail gas, no one does this on a retail electricity product currently. If you did, the cost per household would probably be around $5 a month. So that just kind of gives you a sense of how much extra it costs people to buy renewable. We think there's an appetite for a retail product at some stage, and I think it's just a matter of, the problem for us is we don't want to attract 20,000 retail customers individually in our system, so we're going to have to solve that, but very good.
Cool. Thank you so much, Shaun.
Thanks, everyone.